Aviral, how many students do we have here? Around over here, how many of us are here? 80, 90, some number? I said kindly get up and ask me a question. Who is the one who displays courage to instantly get up and raise a question? Who is it who does that? Aviral. Who is actually not afraid? Aviral. And what does Aviral ask?
Sir, it occurs to me several times, sir. When I want.
Aviral, are you afraid right now?
No, sir.
That's the action. That you are speaking something. Your throat is producing a few waves. That merely is the action. Nothing else. Everything else is a thought. Everything else is a thought. The action is just this, that you rise up and your throat emits a few waves. That's the action, real action, right? Everything else is a thought. Now, would you be afraid of doing this action in a vacant room? Is there anybody here who is afraid of speaking even in a vacant room? Anybody? Who is afraid in speaking even in front of the mirror? No. So first thing, fear is a thought. Second thing, that thought is of others. And who are the others out here? You are. So please repent. You are the ones who is terrifying him. It's obvious that Aviral is afraid of nobody else but you. And that's not his story. That's the story of each single one of us. We are afraid of the others around us. And most of those others happen to be our friends and family members and parts of society that we know. Are you getting it? Is this very direct? First of all, there is no fear in action. When action begins, fear is nowhere. There is fear before the action. In the thick of action, there is no fear. So fear is a thought. Second thing, that thought is of others. Sit up. Now, why must the thought of others make you afraid? It's strange. Why must the thought of others make one afraid? Is there any need to be afraid of others when the thought of others arises? But surely it always terrifies us. Why does it terrify us? There is a reason. The reason is, there is a lot that Aviral has taken from you all. And Aviral is scared that what he has taken from you, that can be taken away. So he is afraid. What he has taken from you is not his. It's a borrowed thing. And it can be taken away by you because it came from you. So he is afraid. Now, who is smart enough to tell me what is it that Aviral has taken from you? Good, wonderful. What's your name? Who? What's your name? Rishabh. Nice. What else? Rishabh said respect. Respect is what he has taken from us, and he is afraid that that respect can be taken back. What else has he taken from you?
Affection. Affection.
Affection. A sense of acceptance, may I say? His sense of acceptance comes from you all, and he is afraid it can be taken away. What else has he borrowed from you? And remember, it's not his story. It's the story of each one of us. So we better go into it very keenly.
Social relation.
Social
Relationship.
relationship. Could I say his place of being in the society comes from the acceptance of others in the eyes of others? Yes? Alright, yes. What else has he taken from you? I'll just invert the question now. Is there anything that he has and not taken it from anybody else? Tell me, is there anything in your mind that you have not taken from somebody else? I'm turning the question around. I asked, what all has he taken from you? I'm now asking, is there anything with you in this mind? Is there anything that you have not taken from others? Anything that is purely your own? Thoughts? Yeah, thoughts. Thought about what? Tell me a single thought that is really your own.
Fear.
Thought on fear? The fear itself comes from outside. So how can the thought of fear be yours? Is there really anything in your mind which is your own, you have not taken from outside? We are investigating fear. We are investigating fear. Is there anything in your mind that you have not taken from others?
Confidence.
Confidence? I can give you a lot of confidence and I can also take it back. People can be very nasty. Your confidence is so situational. In front of one particular fellow, you start feeling confident. In front of another one, you don't feel confident. What's innate about it? An easy question paper comes and you feel? And a terrible question paper comes and you feel? Gone. Now, is your confidence yours or is it a function of the question paper? Your confidence is not really yours. Is there anything here that is totally yours which does not change with situations? I'm dropping a hint. If it is yours, it will not change with the situation. And nobody can take it away.
So it's only me.
What is this me? If it's your body, it can be taken away. Bang, bang, twice, gone, finished. It can be taken away.
Knowledge.
Knowledge? Yeah, you are born with it?
So myself, my individuality.
Yes, but what is that?
So the
Just a word?
first thing I get when I see something, like when I first saw the paper, the first thoughts that came in my mind, is it tough, it's easy, it's tough. There's the thoughts, there's the self, what self tells me about it, about the paper.
You are coming close to it. Needs a little refinement just in terms of expression. Yes. Little more on that. What's really yours?
So courage.
Courage? So closely linked to confidence. So closely linked to confidence. Someone comes and motivates you to be courageous. And you start feeling very courageous. That's what all these military tunes are all about. Have you ever heard military music? Have you ever heard military music? The bands and all. That's there just to provoke courage. Have you heard that Ala Udal song? No, you haven't. Too urbanized to hear that, right? That's there just to do that, to provoke courage. And when you say courage, do you understand that there can be no courage without fear? If fear comes from outside and there can be no courage without fear, surely courage also depends on the outside. Can there be courage if you are not feeling afraid? Do you require courage to stand in front of your parents, usually in the normal sense, not when you have stolen something, not when you are introducing your girlfriend? In general, do you require courage to talk to your parents? You don't, because you are not afraid. Courage comes into the picture only when you are afraid. Otherwise, what's the use of courage? What's the use of courage? Only a scared man requires courage. So, courage can't be intrinsic. Every single bit of this is conditioned. Every thought down right to the roots is conditioned, comes from the outside. Kindly think that you are speaking French. Kindly think. Think. You can't, because there is no external source in your past that has brought the knowledge of French to you. So you can't even think. Your thought necessarily depends upon an external input that has already come to you. Otherwise, there can be no thought. Are you getting it? So, Aviral, when everything that you have comes from others here, what does that mean in terms of fear? We said that his respect comes from others, his acceptance comes from others, and hence he is afraid that it can be taken back. But what if the situation is that everything that we have here comes actually from the other? Then what would be the quality of life? Always fearful. Because whatever you have has come to you from somebody else. Some situation, some person, some entity, some system, some structure. But it has come from the outside for sure. So you'll always be afraid. Never sure, never really sure. Your life will lack conviction. It will lack that sense of sureness that I know for myself and I don't need to hear it from anybody else. Are you understanding fear? First thing, fear is not in the action, fear is in the thoughts. Second thing, the thought that terrifies you is the thought of he is afraid that what will you think of him. Are you getting it? And you are afraid what the others will think of you because, Aviral, you have opened your gates for others. There is a particular temptation behind that. Let's understand it. When somebody comes to you and says, Aviral, you are brilliant, you don't go about asking, why are people saying that I am brilliant? You say, I must be brilliant, hence he is saying that I am brilliant. But when somebody comes to you and says, you are stupid, then you go and ask, why does the world call me stupid? The question is, would you really mind being called stupid had you not accepted that you are brilliant? See, once you have opened the gates, once you have accepted from somebody else that you are brilliant, when that same somebody else says that you are stupid, you will have to accept that as well. Your very identity, your sense of yourself is dependent on somebody else. You have no understanding of yourself, your own mind. The question, who am I, is going constantly unanswered. Am I connecting with you? Yes. Are we together? Yes. No? Yes, no what? How many of you are sure that you are understanding something? Yes. All right. Yes, Aviral? It's only because I feel good when you say good things about me that I feel bad when you will say bad things about me. All the goodness that you know about yourself has been told to you by others. You feel good about the certificates that you have in life. Who gave you those certificates? Others. You feel proud of a particular nation. Who gave you that nationality? You feel very sure about being a Hindu or a Muslim. Who gave you that religion? All that fills up your mind essentially comes from the other. And that makes life a living hell. Because you will always be fearful. Are you understanding the origin of fear, Aviral? Whenever what you have comes from the other, you are always afraid because it can go back. There is no security. So the mind will remain afraid. How to be free of fear? Find that out. Live in that which has not been given to you by others. And what is that? Our friend said individuality. We'll go again into it. What is that which has not been given to you by others? If you live in that then there is no reason to be afraid. Then fear cannot touch you. With how many of you is fear a concern at some point or other? How many of you feel afraid? Yes. Each single one of us, whoever experiences fear, must go into finding out what is really his. And when he finds that out, fear would have gone. Fear would come, but would remain just on the surface. It won't touch you. It won't penetrate deep. Alright, we'll go into it. What is really our own? Do you think it's a worthy question? Should we go into it? Yes. Alright. What is really our own? What is really our own? When we are investigating this question, what are we using? What is really my own? When I am investigating this question, can I investigate it using borrowed facts? See, I want to find out what is my own, and can I find this out using what is not my own? When I am finding out what is my own, what am I using? The mind? The conditioned mind? Is that what I am using? Just facts borrowed from somebody else? Then I am not finding out, I am just believing. If I am using the information, facts, beliefs given by somebody else, then am I really finding out? What am I using when I am finding out what is really my own? What am I using? Am I using information given to me by others? Am I using beliefs drilled into me by others? What am I using? How are you finding out? How are you finding out? What is the process of finding out? How do you find out anything? Yes? How are you verifying? This mind right now is a laboratory. We all are doing it. What is it that we are using to find out what is really my own? Speak, don't hesitate. Yes. What are we using? You're looking at external information, right? If I'm looking at you, am I using you? I am looking at external information, correct? What is looking at that information? What is looking at that information? You are trying to understand all the external information, alright. Now what is understanding that information? The conditioned mind? Alright. Let's say we have 80 of you here who are hearing what I am saying. There is an 81st as well. There is an 81st as well who is receiving all the information that I am giving and who is also getting this question that find out what's your own. This camera. This camera is receiving all the sound waves that I am emitting. But can it find out what is it that it's own? What's the difference between you and the camera? This camera has all the information that I am giving it. And let's say we can somehow load it with all other information as well. That can be done. All the information in the world, it can be attached to that online. But still it will never be able to find out what we are trying to. What's the difference between you and this camera? What is it in you that can never be in this camera? If mind means just a reservoir of information, then this camera has a lot of mind. What is mind? Just a recipient of information? Or is the mind something more than that? It understands. It understands, right? That understanding is with you, but it can never be with this camera. Never. This camera listens to me so often, so frequently. Still it remains so poor. First of all, it never asks me any question. And even when I keep saying something, it keeps on receiving it, neither objects nor accepts. When I delete information from it, it's cool, relaxed. The poor fellow, nothing happens to it. 100 GB of memory is what it has. You don't have that much. And yet you gain so much. This never gains anything. What is this thing called understanding? that is totally yours, right? Information, this too has. Information on its own doesn't help if you don't understand. That understanding is totally yours. That's innate to you. Aviral, are you together?
Yes.
Have you dropped by? You're with me, right? That understanding is totally yours. Right? If you can live in that, then fear will not touch you. Let me give you an example. Something happens and fear comes to you because the mind is conditioned to be afraid. Correct? At that moment, if you can understand what's going on, then the fear belongs to the mind, not to you. Now the mind will be afraid, you will not be afraid. Are you getting it? Are you understanding what is the whole thing about? The mind will be afraid, you will not be afraid. Because you are understanding fear. Understanding means being at a little distance from something. And if you are a little distance from something, then fear cannot touch you. Are you getting it? Yes? When fear comes, Aviral, just see that it's a result of the external influence. It's the nature of this poor mind to be afraid. And tell the mind, Aviral's mind, keep on being afraid. Aviral will not be afraid. Or better still, tell it, Aviral, keep being afraid. I will not be afraid. Are you getting it? Aviral, keep being afraid. I will not be afraid because I understand that you are afraid. Are you getting it? Aviral, you want to live in fear? Keep living in fear. I will not live in fear. Fear is of others, fear is mechanical, fear is conditioning. If I am understanding it, how can I be afraid? Let the mind be afraid. It's the nature of the mind, the poor thing, to be afraid. But you can understand that, right? Yes? Are you afraid right now? Not at all. Look how you are smiling. But it's quite possible that a moment later, fear may again come to you. It's quite possible a moment later, it will again come to you. Then what will you do? Understand that surely some thought is arising. And every thought is given to me by others. To be afraid means to become dependent on others, to become a slave of others. I will not let that happen to me. Let that happen to this. I will not let it happen to me. Right? Alright, next question.